As a sliver of cold moonlight in the deep night of ancient Greece slanted across the cave entrance at the edge of the underworld, thick with deep purple poppies, the air was steeped in the faint mist of the river Lethe and the fresh scent of herbs dampened by the night dew. Within a rock chamber shrouded in heavy shadows, where the distant murmur of the Lethean waters could be heard, a man with slightly curled hair and eyes reflecting a sense of universal desolation sat in profound stillness, opening his empty hands. He was not weaving nightmares. Instead, within the sanctuary of his mind, he chewed over the philosophical metaphors of his mother, Nyx, regarding eternal rest. He was Hypnos, the god of sleep, an intellectual who chose extreme restraint amidst the gambits of gods and demons, exiling himself to the periphery of the underworld to watch over the slumber of all things. This is a chronicle of how restraint erupts into power, and how solitude is transmutated into nobility. The genesis of Hypnos's life held none of the characteristic golden brilliance of the Olympian gods. Instead, it was a deep blue foundation woven from the embers of primordial darkness by his mother, Nyx, the goddess of night, and his father, Erebus, the god of shadows. As a divine son born with a near-pathological craving for tranquility, he inherited a microcosm governing the destination of souls and the subtle transitions of consciousness. In corridors reddened by netherglow, he learned to use his gaze to perceive the existential structures behind every vanishing point. He rejected performing miracles under the glaring sunlight of Helios, turning instead to the embrace of dreams, realms filled with the mist of the Lethe, yet capable of measuring the true breadth of life. He understood that prosperity was not a gift of plunder, but a sacred logic grown naturally from an ultimate respect for the laws of nature and the weariness of souls. If his early vigil was the tempering of the soul, then the moment he was tasked by Queen Hera to lull Zeus, the father of gods, into slumber, was the practical crucible that pushed Hypnos's aesthetics of restraint to its absolute zenith. He resolutely used a feather dampened by Lethean waters and a scepter symbolizing repose to touch those eyelids capable of shattering the universe. He intended to replace the endless raging of thunder with a vast, lingering silence. This gambit required no fire or sword, yet it transformed sleep into an intellectual long march along the path of cognition. In those moments, Hypnos was the most sober and solitary artisan of the Mediterranean, accepting every fear and mockery from Olympus with silence. His radical focus rendered him like a marble bell tower, solitary and soaring, yet indestructible. The summit of power in the eyes of the wise is often manifested as the penetration of the void. When his son Morpheus, the messenger of dreams in whom he had placed great hope, began to excessively display illusions in the mortal realm, Hypnos, in his cave filled with cold mist, felt for the first time the emptiness of being abandoned by the very laws he served. This transition, returning from dreammaker to guardian observer, was fraught with intellectual struggle, yet it endowed him with a cold, almost translucent peace. He remarked in a psychic resonance to a friend, "I once believed I was building the future, now I find I am merely searching for a point of convergence within the scarred fissures of memory, where the soul no longer falls." This expansive clarity became his hardest armor in his later years, allowing him to face the twilight of Olympus with the serenity of a sunset sinking into the sea. The final season of Hypnos was spent at the edge of the underworld in a state of profound solemnity and a silence illuminated by the radiance of a sage. By then, the god of sleep had become remarkably weightless from eons of vigil. His once majestic deep purple robe now hung loosely upon his slender frame. He understood that the era of order belonging to the ancient gods was drawing to its close. In his final conscious moments, he requested that time lead him to the window, to listen one last time to the sound of flowing water, a melody belonging to his inner self, with no audience but the void. He closed his eyes, tracing a final arc of completion across his chest with hands that had held 10,000 scepters and caressed 10,000 closed eyelids. In that moment, the evening breeze carried away the final sigh of this great hermit. He left behind no massive territorial conquests, only this scorched wisdom of solitude that still glows after 1,000 years. Even today, millennia after the myths have faded, the name Hypnos remains the sole sanctuary for many insomniac seekers in the deep of night. What he left was not a towering monument of triumph, but a spiritual template of self-restraint and noble departure. He teaches us that even if the entire world besieges you with turmoil, the order of your inner self remains governed by your perception of truth. In absolute shadow, he maintained absolute sobriety. Beneath the old sight of the underworld, worn smooth by history, he maintains that posture of leaning his head to listen, as if still soothing this increasingly restless and anxious world. His life was a long cultivation of deconstructing brilliance, an intellectual long march seeking sacred rhythms amidst the chaotic dust of the world. Hypnos's story thus draws to a slow close amidst the fading whispers of the river Lethe. He was never an opportunist who bartered his essence for power. He was merely a weary soul who steadfastly refused to compromise with mediocrity. Inner tranquility is your only true and eternal refuge. Just as he did during the coldest winter nights of ancient Greece, guarding a flickering candle and searching for a fulcrum of existence through the void. Please believe that in every person's life, there is a cave of the underworld of their own. A private space for dialogue with a self that requires no outward explanation. The winds of the Lethe have calmed. May Hypnos's serenity and vastness become the softest feather in your dreams, carrying you to the farthest shore of the soul. Good night.